I think that tick-borne illnesses, we're just going to see more and more of a problem if it doesn't get aggressively handled.
The CDC estimates 300,000 people across the country are affected with Lyme disease each year, making it the most common vector-borne disease in the country. And on Delmarva,
it's like a perfect storm. All the things that help to make Lyme disease flourish and ticks and everything occur here.
But preventing tick-borne illnesses is much more complicated than just avoiding endemic areas. Here's 47 ABC Special Investigative Report, Tiny Tick, Big Controversy, with lead investigative reporter Emily Lampa.
Lyme disease. Many of us are familiar with it. You might even know someone who has it. Singer Avril Lavigne recently made headlines sharing her battle with this disease. Or maybe you've just heard the warnings. Avoid the deer tick. Its bite spreads the infection. But beyond that, it's a mysterious illness clouded by controversy. Borrelia burgdorferi is the name of this bacteria which causes Lyme disease. Now, scientists believe it's been around for thousands of years, but only discovered in the U.S. about 40 years ago after an outbreak in Lyme, Connecticut. Today, we now know the Delmarva Peninsula, like much of the Northeast, is endemic for Lyme disease, which is why the many contentious debates over this illness affect all of us directly. Over the next half hour, you'll hear from those affected by this disease, young and old, powerful, and those who feel powerless. All of them tell me they are adamant and admittedly desperate for action.
With 3, Deladon with 2, Deladon on the spin, and the winner for Elena Deladon at the buzzer!
WNBA superstar Elena Deladon is in the middle of her 3rd season with the Chicago Sky. Despite her celebrity status in the Midwest, Deladon continues to be Delaware's sweetheart. Born and raised in Wilmington, she made her home state proud, playing for the University of Delaware, becoming one of the school's most decorated athletes.
This makes the game look so easy, so smooth, and she's 6'5" doing all that.
But looks can be deceiving because Elena's rise to success has been far from easy. Getting to the pros is difficult for healthy athletes. What many people don't know, Elena Deladon is sick.
Lyme disease has affected me in so many ways, and if my story can somehow help somebody who's feeling really sick and not really sure what's going on, or direct them on the right path to getting healthy, then I want to do that.
Elena's journey with Lyme disease started in 2009, the summer before her freshman year of college, with severe migraines, body aches, extreme exhaustion. She tested positive for Lyme disease, but she never had the bullseye rash. Only about 70% of infected people actually get this telltale mark. Left untreated for weeks, those with Lyme disease may develop severe headaches, neck stiffness, pain and swelling in the joints, shooting pains while sleeping, heart palpitations and dizziness, or Bell's palsy, which is temporary paralysis on one side of the face. But if it goes unaddressed for months or years, those infected could experience arthritis, joint swelling, or nervous system problems, even heart issues, eye inflammation, hepatitis, and severe fatigue. Doctors quickly treated Elena with antibiotics, and she appeared to be in the clear until 2010. Her sophomore year of college, in a matchup against Penn State, she asked to be taken out of the game.
Basketball wasn't even a thought. I couldn't even sit through a class because I was so exhausted. And I remember even turning to my friend during a class and said, "It's hurting me to breathe right now." I just felt so sick and so tired and exhausted.
Elena spent the next 4 weeks searching for answers.
I went through a ridiculous amount of different tests and different doctors all telling me that I was fine and nothing was wrong with me.
Elena says she was eventually diagnosed with chronic Lyme disease, what medical experts refer to as post-treatment Lyme disease syndrome. It's characterized by lingering symptoms of fatigue, pain, or joint and muscle aches, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimate up to 20% of patients formerly diagnosed and treated for Lyme disease have this condition.
I have really bad stomach pains and leg pains and stuff.
I say it feels like you have the flu every day.
The brain fog. I would get very confused. There were some days that I could read the same thing over and over again, and I had no idea what it said. I knew what each individual word was, but I couldn't put them together to comprehend what it was telling me.
Folks who have chronic Lyme often don't show evidence of an active infection, and since medical experts and researchers still haven't nailed down the exact cause of PTLDS, this condition is extremely controversial. Some medical experts believe the lingering symptoms may be the result of immune system and tissue damage suffered during the initial Lyme disease infection. On the other side of the debate are doctors who believe chronic Lyme is a persistent infection of Borrelia burgdorferi. A third, even more disputed opinion exists that pins the chronic pain and fatigue on improper antibiotic treatment of the disease. But clinical studies so far have no definitive answers to defend any of these possibilities. And then there is the issue of co-infections. Researchers have confirmed that deer ticks can be infected with more than one disease-causing microbes, such as Bartonella, Anaplasma, Borrelia miyamotoi, a microscopic parasite called Babesia. The list goes on, and all of these infections can have similar symptoms to that of Lyme. The debate over co-infections and chronic Lyme just barely scratches the surface when it comes to the many controversies over Lyme disease. When we return, I'll look at diagnosis and treatment and why even experts say what currently exists isn't good enough. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're talking about Lyme disease and tick-borne co-infections. This is such an alarming issue. One state on the Delmarva Peninsula sought the help of international experts to find out what to do next.
I think that tick-borne illnesses, we're just going to see more and more of a problem if it doesn't get aggressively handled.
Dr. Kathy Spreen is a retired physician and author of the Compendium of Tick-Borne Disease. Over the past several years, she has been working as a consultant for local and state governments in both the U.S. and Canada, discussing Lyme and its various co-infections.
There's been so much controversy around it. First, the rheumatologist said it was their disease, then the dermatologist said it was their disease, then infectious disease people stepped in, so we don't have a real solid collection of data.
Dr. Spreen most recently participated in the Lyme Disease Prevention Task Force in the state of Delaware, started last summer to study and make recommendations on how the first state should combat Lyme.
Delaware can really be in the forefront of this disease.
Delaware legislators say a major motivator for this task force was this: a 2013 CDC map, a visual representation of Lyme disease across the country. Each blue dot represents a reported case of Lyme, and there's Delaware, almost completely blue. The actual hard numbers from the CDC show Delaware with the 6th highest incidence of Lyme disease in the nation. Maryland ranks 13th, Virginia 14th.
I was shocked when I saw that map. I mean, it still just is emblazoned in my brain at how serious this is for our state.
Delaware House Speaker Peter Schwarzkopf is a co-chair on this task force with Senator Ernie Lopez. Schwarzkopf says the climate, the extensive state parkland, teeming with tick hosts like deer and mice, and all that beach grass makes Delaware a hotbed for ticks. And the task force is the direct result of Delaware Lyme patients coming forward to report their struggles.
2015, there are still doctors that are reluctant to diagnose Lyme disease. They don't even recognize Lyme disease. And we have people come to our meetings and they tell their stories.
On June 1st, the task force, which consists of Lyme disease patients, legislators, health and environmental experts, educators, and representatives from insurance agencies, approved this report, which includes a series of recommendations. From raising public awareness to continuing education for healthcare providers, the task force says taking down Lyme and its co-infections is not just about avoiding ticks. It's about early detection and treatment.
The sooner you're diagnosed and appropriately treated, the better chance you have.
This is a sore subject for a number of Lyme patients who claim they have been misdiagnosed by doctors for years.
I was tested 8 years ago as negative, and I crashed 2.5 years ago.
I've been sick and off most of my life, but doctors just said it was depression.
I was misdiagnosed, 25 plus years if you really want to go back to when I first knew that I had problems, and it took that many years, 25 years, to get diagnosed from a doctor that's not even in the state.
I have been to 20-plus doctors, cardiologists, rheumatologists. I've been to 3 rheumatologists, 3 internists, pulmonologists, gastroenterologists, every IST that you can name.
Michelle Green of Townsend, Delaware, says that she remembers the exact day she found a tick had bitten her on her scalp. It was last year on August 21st, but when she went to a doctor.
And I basically had to beg him to do the blood work to test for Lyme, and he did not want to do it.
The current 2-tier testing required for a positive diagnosis of Lyme was established in 1995, and 20 years later, the CDC still recommends it. In order for a patient to test positive for Lyme, the first-tier test, commonly called the ELISA test, must test positive first, and then the second-tier test, called a Western blot, would confirm those results. But the ELISA test is considered problematic because it measures the body's response to the infection, not the bacteria itself. And the reason that it's ineffective early on is that experts say it can take several weeks for the body to create the measurable antibodies to confirm a positive Lyme test. This is why in 2011, the state of Virginia signed into law the Lyme Disease Testing Information Disclosure. It requires all medical professionals who order this ELISA test to notify the patient in writing that a negative test does not necessarily mean you do not have Lyme disease, and that if you have continued symptoms, you should contact your doctor about retesting or additional treatment.
One thing we know for sure about Lyme disease is that the longer the interval between the initial infection and appropriate treatment, the less likely there is to be a positive outcome.
Tick experts say the likelihood of infection depends on how long a tick has been attached, but the research on this is inconsistent. The National Institutes of Health say it's 36 hours. The CDC says it's 24 hours. Some state health departments say it's even sooner than that. But the problem is most people who are bitten by a tick don't know exactly when it first attached itself, which is why the task force recommends that doctors and nurses be allowed to treat Lyme disease and co-infections prophylactically based on a clinical diagnosis instead of relying on the lab tests.
I think that this task force is going to be on the right side of history. I mean, Lyme disease, unless we get very aggressive about it, isn't going away anytime soon. And you're going to be seeing more and more and more cases and more people coming in and saying we need educated practitioners that can deal with these cases.
But right now, a positive test for Lyme is often required for most doctors to start antibiotic treatment and for insurance to cover the cost of antibiotic therapy. The task force hopes legislators will pass a law that would prevent insurance companies from refusing to pay for treatment based on a clinical diagnosis.
An insurance company isn't there to make you well, all right? An insurance company is a business. It's to make money for the insurance company, okay? And that's fine. We all understand the role that's played here. However, I posed this back to the insurance company representatives, and I said, you're a business, make a business decision. It's so much easier to treat at the initial outset and so much cheaper, even though the test is a little bit of money. It's so much easier to have the test and have the antibiotics started than to wait 6 months and then have to treat them for the rest of their life.
A number of people with chronic Lyme symptoms tell 47 ABC they will do pretty much anything for relief. A look at the lengths they'll go after this break. If you're just joining us, we are taking an in-depth look at the controversy surrounding Lyme disease and its co-infections and what's being done to diagnose and treat patients suffering right here on Delmarva. Professional basketball player Elena Delle Donne admits she felt lost when she started having symptoms of extreme fatigue, joint pain, and muscle cramps back in 2010. That is until she found a nurse practitioner who diagnosed her with chronic Lyme and tick-borne co-infections and agreed to treat her immediately.
Luckily, I was finally able to find a specialist who heard me and, understood me and listened to my symptoms and had a plan to get me better. So that's what was refreshing.
After 1 month of antibiotic treatments and vitamin supplements, Elena was able to get back to basketball. Fast forward to the present, and Elena describes her current season with the Chicago Sky as a healthy one, which is humble, considering sports reporters are now calling it historic. Elena just set the WNBA record for scoring the most points in the first 9 games of the season. But this early success is in stark contrast to last season, when she missed 17 games.
I'm still trying to get my legs under me, so I think that's why you kind of see a little bit of a downfall on offense, but I try to really stay connected defensively and do all I can to really help my team that way.
She describes her relapses as debilitating.
The scary thing is, there's a day I could just wake up and feel awful, and at that point I know that I'm relapsing and there's really nothing I can do about it.
Aside from the regular regimen of vitamin supplements, Elena admits she is continually on antibiotic treatments, and that's a serious point of contention among doctors and the scientific community. According to the CDC, prolonged courses of antibiotics don't appear to improve the symptoms of PTLDS patients any more than placebos do. But new research from the Bloomberg School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins University took a look at the current antibiotics used to treat Lyme disease and had some interesting findings which were published last year. The study examined Borrelia burgdorferi during 2 growth stages, 2 to 5-day-old cultures and 6 to 11-day-old cultures. It showed that the typical antibiotics used to treat Lyme disease, doxycycline and amoxicillin, worked well against the bacteria in the first phase of growth, but worked poorly against the Burgdorferi persisters in the older cultures. Further studies showed that combining doxycycline with daptomycin, an antibiotic often used to treat MRSA, has shown success killing off these persisters in the lab. But there haven't been any animal or human trials to confirm if this will have any effect on chronic Lyme symptoms. Also, it's still not clear if the persisting form of the Lyme disease bacteria that they saw in the lab is the actual cause of chronic Lyme. Despite this new study, many medical experts still warn that long-term antibiotic treatment for Lyme disease has been associated with serious complications. And the CDC maintains on their website that PTLDS patients almost always get better with time, and that it can take months to feel completely well. But there are a number of chronic Lyme patients who tell 47ABC they have been suffering for years with no relief. These ladies say their suffering is so severe, they're looking into alternative therapies. They are all seeing Dr. Henry Childers in Georgetown, Delaware, for ozone therapy, a treatment being explored in clinical trials, but it's not FDA approved yet.
So there's some of the patients that are here were wanting to go to the clinics in Mexico because they found out about ozone treatment. They were just ready to get on there and cross the border and go into Tijuana and just, get their Lyme treatment, right? Because they're desperate. Like, Lyme patients are desperate patients.
They each pay upwards of $9,000 out of pocket for 36 IV ozone treatments, which also includes a number of other alternative medical treatments such as ultraviolet light and high-dose IV vitamin therapy.
No matter what the cost was going to be for me, I knew insurance wasn't going to pay for it. I was going to come up with the money, and that was 3 weeks ago. And I've come up with the money, and so I'm here for my first treatment.
These patients make their way to Georgetown from as far away as D.C. for this treatment, which they admit gives them all different results.
I can say after the first treatment here, the next day, I felt like a different person. It was a blessing.
There's been a lot of ups and downs, and that's been frustrating. But I know it's working because I wouldn't have had those ups and downs if it wasn't doing something.
Do you feel like this treatment's helping you?
Yeah.
How's it changed things?
I feel like I have more energy now.
There are people who do get better, and I am one of them, thank God. So there is hope.
Because this isn't an FDA-approved clinical trial, some medical professionals believe it's difficult to say if these Lyme patients are improving or just experiencing a placebo effect.
I don't like anecdotal data, but when you treat people who have had decades or years worth of symptoms, debilitating that affect every aspect of your life, and all of a sudden it's getting better, who cares? They're getting better. It's not any voodoo stuff. It's open up the biochemistry book. It's all in there.
Despite the varying results, one thing is abundantly clear. All of these patients are protective of Dr. Childers and the work he's doing.
If you have Lyme disease and you need an alternative therapy, you just accept that you're going to pay for it out of your pocket. You accept that you need to be really, really careful. You don't want to say or do anything that's going to put the doctor's position in jeopardy. Like, you don't want FDA coming here and trying to shut the doctor down.
These doctors are saving lives, and they're putting their medical licenses on the line for us.
I'm sure there are chances he's had to take that other doctors won't.
I'm so thankful that he's here and that this treatment is only an hour away.
Aside from treatment, approved or otherwise, another big development on the medical horizon is a potential Lyme vaccine for humans. A drug company out of Austria announced in 2013 that they're developing a new universal Lyme vaccine. There is still no word on if and when it will be ready for distribution. Now, we're going to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll tell you about the vaccine already out there, but it's not for humans. Before the break, we explained how there is currently no human vaccine for Lyme, but there is a vaccine out there which is showing some promise. Deer ticks infect humans after picking up the Lyme disease bacteria from infected hosts like mice and white-tailed deer. 47 ABC found this deer at Cape and Lopin State Park in Lewis with a number of engorged ticks attached to its ears. In the hopes of breaking the cycle of infection, there is a vaccine out there for mice, which has shown results in reducing the number of infected ticks, which is why the Lyme Disease Prevention Task Force is exploring this as a possible option for Delaware.
I don't want you going out of here with some false hope that everything in this report will become law.
This is how House Speaker Pete Schwarzkopf ended the task force meeting in Dover on June 1st, after they finalized their findings into a list of recommendations for state leaders. He urged committee members to not be too optimistic, but the patients who testified at the meetings about their chronic Lyme symptoms say they can't feel anything but positive.
It's just a dream come true, because I've been waiting so long for anything to happen, and it's finally, starting.
It can happen. It just needs to happen now.
I just hope and pray that they go farther and something gets done, because I don't want anybody else to suffer from what we all have suffered. We have been through a lot to get as far as we have.
This hope for the future is mirrored not just by those who are sick, but by their caregivers as well.
If a parent could actually say, oh, my child has Lyme disease, oh, they have this co-infection, and then they would actually have a treatment plan, or they would have a specialist that would know exactly what to do, how to treat them, and that there would be no controversy associated with that journey. That would be a victory.
You're living here in an endemic area on the whole Delmarva Peninsula is very endemic for tick-borne diseases. Stop and think, could this be caused by a tick-borne disease? And if you have suspicions for it, then they can call our organization, get some information, and we can point them to the right resources.
We have contact information for the Lyme Disease Association of the Eastern Shore of Maryland and other helpful resources on our website right now. That's 47abc.com. Now, in the past half hour, we heard from so many people, mostly those suffering with tick-borne infections. We have even more personal stories on our website. But the response from doctors and medical experts, a much different story. I put in a number of requests to interview researchers at the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, Johns Hopkins University, the Medical Society of Delaware, and the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Although some spoke to me over the phone, all turned down the opportunity for a recorded or on-camera interview. Now, this debate is an ongoing conversation that we here at 47ABC hope you will participate in. Join us online, on our website, on Facebook and Twitter to comment on what you just saw or discuss other issues you believe might be valuable to this dialogue. This half-hour special will be available to view again and share on our website, 47abc.com, where we also have even more content and research. I'm Emily Lampa. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Good night.